Hello and welcome to Planet Outlook. On this episode, we have the young environmentalist Siddharth Agarwal, who's a IIT alumni and trained in aerospace engineering. But he left all that to explore rivers and our environment. He's already walked two length of rivers, the Ganga and the Ken. He's also cycled from Calcutta to Mumbai. Uh, so he's been doing some amazing journeys for the last few years, and we'll hear more from him on this episode. So welcome to Planet Outlook. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start. What made you, or what put you on this journey? What inspired? That book on the mid 80s by somebody called Benwick, walked all the length of the Ganga, was an inspiration for you?
As a child, I spent more time watching Nat Geo and Discovery rather than Cartoon Network or Pogo. And I had sort of, the bug had gotten into me back then itself. But as I grew up and I went to school also encouraged us to uh, take part in extracurricular activities. And they also had provisions where we could talk about the environment or social issues. So I think all of those combined, uh, along with the fact that when I was in standard 10th, I had the opportunity to trek to Gomuk along with the group. I think all those sort of building elements over time slowly, put these thoughts in my mind. Though I did go to college to study engineering out of choice. I really wanted to be an engineer. It's just that when I reached college and this space that I was in IIT Kharagpur, it's really a platform that gives you so much confidence. And then you see your peers and your alumni doing such incredible stuff that's not necessarily academic. So that sort of gives you confidence to explore whatever you want to. So that's where the seeds of all these ideas regarding the environment and exploration really germinated for me. That's where it got the nutrition.
But why rivers? What made you do this walk on a river? Why not a mountain? Why not a different landscape?
Right. Um, I think I've spoken about why Ganga, because Ganga flows through Calcutta. That's where I've been born and brought up. But why rivers is also something very similar in the sense that when I first went out cycling or when I went walking in Rajasthan before I walked the Ganga, it was always in the search for stories. That's what was one drive. But this other idea of the environment always was on my radar, if I can say. And the combination of the two really made the choice very simple for me, that rivers as something that connects us was something to look at. And along with it, the time when I started this journey of mine, or journeys I should say, many journeys, was a time when there was so much talk about the Ganga, especially politically. So there was so much information that was uh, in media, and it really made me think about uh, who are the people who are really talking about the river. And those are some of the factors that made me go and walk along a river, and then from there it just started and it hasn't stopped.
So also, generally speaking, everyone starts at the source and then kind of moves downstream. You went upstream. So how did this happen?
uh, it's poetic in a way that challenges are generally referred to as something that you are moving against the current. But in my case, because I stay in Calcutta and the river meets the ocean very close to where I live, it just seemed very obvious that one should start here and go on a journey of discovery instead of going very far and coming back home in search of something. So you start from wherever you are, and it's symbolic in a way that we don't really need to go too far to start doing something like this. We can start wherever we are.
And so tell was a bit of the adventure, which has happened for many months.
Yeah. So it took us about 6 months to walk the Ganga. And when I say us, it's because there are others who joined the walk at different times. They walked with us in sections. Some came out of pure curiosity. Some came because they were interested in water and rivers. Some came because they were interested in making films. So there was so many people who came and joined the walk, and that these all of these added layers to the adventure, uh, beyond what I could myself just enjoy or look at. They brought perspectives with them as well. Um, but talking about adventure, I started in June, and it was hot. It was very hot. Uh, and it just so happened that I started in June. Uh, but that also gave us the advantage of looking at different seasons. That I started in the summer, and then if we transitioned into monsoon, and then autumn. So the seasons came through, and it really changed how the river behaved, and that also changed the adventure in itself. That in the summer, what do? You have to take more stops to let your body hydrate again, or use that time in the afternoon to sit and speak to people, instead of an autumn afternoon where you could actually have a very pleasant walk along the river. So the adventure was constantly being molded along with the season, uh, the geography that we were walking through, and whether it was an urban area or a rural area, there were so many conditions. So every day was definitely a new adventure.
And which are the places you planned this also very meticulously? So where did you halt for the night, and was it easy? Was it tough?
Uh, in terms of planning of where to stay, um, in the first month of when I was walking, there was this crew who was traveling along with me. So we had to really think about where to stay, where to reach, so that we could get a place to, rent to stay. So the first month in Bengal, we had to do some amount of planning, that this is where we could reach and find a place to stay. Um, so we ended up staying in more urban spaces, relatively urban spaces. But after Bengal, when the crew dropped out of the project for whatever reasons they did, I was alone for the next 2,000 kilometers or so. And none of that was planned. I did not plan any of those days. Uh, every day was that I'll start in the morning, walk till evening, and wherever I reach, I then converse with people to tell them what I'm doing, and explain to them that I need food and shelter, and they would graciously allow me that. And starting from Farakka onwards, all the days that we spent walking along the river were completely unplanned in a way.
On an average, how many kilometers were you walking?
When walking the Ganga,
Yeah.
initially I was walking about 25, 30 kilometers a day. Um, but as I moved on, I sort of reduced the number of kilometers that I was walking. But by the time I walked the Ken, this was also for me a journey of learning, of unlearning, and also getting away from the internet to make decisions. So when I was walking the Ganga, I was also prohibited or limited by resources, because every day you spend on the field is more expenses. And keeping that in mind, we had to also ensure that we didn't spend too much time on the field because it was expensive to do so. Uh, but by the time I finished the walk along the Ganga, this sort of got figured out on what is this expenditure that you have to do, or how you can not expend so much money. And by the time I walked my second river, which is the Ken, I was walking about 13, 14 kilometers a day at max. So it changed so much for me also, that even the earlier walking that I was doing, first I thought cycling was fast. Then I was walking 25, 30 kilometers a day. Then I started thinking that was fast. And now I was walking the Ken, where we reduced the speed even more. One, because the landscape didn't allow us to walk so much, but because we were trying to stay as close to the river as possible while walking the Ken, we were going through ravines and taking detours along the smaller tributaries. There were no bridges there. So you had to walk till the point where you could uh, safely cross over from a tributary or a smaller stream. So the distances have reduced a lot. And if somebody asks me today, then I definitely suggest to them that don't walk too much, because you're not walking to create a record.
So the other thing is, you got also seriously injured during your Ganga walk. How did that happen? Was it a slip or a fall?
Uh, Many slips and falls have definitely happened while walking. I do recollect some incidents which could have hurt me, but I didn't realize the severity at that point. But sometime when I was nearing Garmukteshwar, I realized that my body was not tuned so well, and I was having issues. And I hurt my spine. So essentially, I have something called um, sciatica, where my L6S1 vertebrae are pinched together more than they should, and it's hurting my nerves.
So Siddharth, you also ended in Gangotri while your original plan was to end in Tapobon.
Right.
Again, a last minute change of plan, or was this injury factor which was bothering you?
No, it was just a last minute change of plan for us of not going to Tapovan. Also, because we reached at a time where the path ahead of Gangotri was not open for visitors. So we had reached on 3rd April, Gangotri, and the path ahead was not open for travelers to go. So I hope to go and walk that path at some point. But what I've also realized is that it is um, it's in the nature of uh, processes like this to let things go sometimes.
So, apart from this amazing journey for journey, just give us a one or two stories one of the amazing stories which comes back to you again and again, which you have documented.
Right. Um, One thing that immediately hits me is this time when I was walking upstream of Allahabad, and that night and that was the time when and when I was leaving from Allahabad, because that area is a bit densely populated, and there's a big mandi next to the Ganga there, so you can't really walk the banks there. So I had walked from the Grand Trunk Road and then rejoined the Ganga at one point. And I remember when I reached this village, which was a fishing village. Um, in a way. And I sat at uh, sat with the fishermen in that area, and had a conversation. We had an hour-long conversation, and through that conversation, got to know the fishermen, what they do, what are the fishes they catch, or what are the issues that they face. And after that 1 hour of conversation there, um, I was inclined to spend some more time with them. So I asked them if they're going to go fishing anytime soon. They said, yes, we're going in a few hours. So I stayed with them. I left and walking alone, you have to take so many leaps of faith. And I was going on a boat, so I didn't want to jeopardize all my bag and equipment. So I asked them if there's something somewhere safe that I can keep my bag. So I kept my bag with all my luggage except my camera and phone at the village temple. And looking back, it's a huge leap of faith, but I left it there. I went with the fishermen at around 4 p.m. In the evening, and we went fishing. We stayed on a river island at night, and then we came back next morning. And this whole process of going with them fishing, uh, it was incredibly eye-opening in what is this life that riparian communities live. I had not seen much of this broadcasted in all this media coverage that we see of rivers in India, especially Ganga. There's so much media talk, but it's always ministers giving bites or bureaucrats giving bites. But where is the riparian community, especially in the popular media? And this was away from roads, so nobody was even trying to come to this place. But it was an incredible experience. There was a crescent moon, and these fishermen were fishing in the evening, post dusk, the crepuscular period, and it was fantastic. It was really, it was a connection that got created with fishing communities through experiences like these that now I feel that if you talk about something, that is what you want to talk about. That is what you should talk about.
And what about the river on its own? Because all the reports that we read that all our rivers are crisis, they are heavily polluted. So what did you see on the ground?
I was trying to walk as a lay person and gather people's perspectives on what people along the river thought about. People along the river had heard more from media reports that the river is polluted than they were feeling that the river is polluted. Even in the most polluted stretches. The story of the fisherman that I just narrated uh, was a story downstream of Kanpur. And you would think that Kanpur is so infamous for its pollution, especially through the tanneries, that anybody living in the 100 kilometers downstream would not touch the river. But here were communities constantly interacting with the river. When I went fishing with them, they were drinking water from the same river and like without fear entering that river. So people's relationship with the river was so different. However, the one thing that really hits you is that so for some of the stretches I was walking was during the monsoons. The river had a lot more volume, but it clearly hits you when you are in a non-monsoon period that one of the biggest challenges that the river faces is that the river does not have water itself. The flow itself is vanishing from the river because of so many diversions, and that I think is something that a lot of us folks who see the river only through these major cities or bridges, uh, somehow the design is such that we see where there is flow, but we miss out when there is no flow. So I think that is something that definitely stood out when looking at the river at different places. And the clearest example of this is Haridwar, where at Har Ki Pauri, where people go and celebrate, or which is the popular ghat, is actually a canal. It's not the river. If you think about it in a very pure way, the river, the main stream of the river is completely dry. And if you have a conversation with someone there, it takes a couple of minutes to make people realize that this is happening. But then I think once you put this idea in people's heads, then they can't forget it. But it's important, I think we do this, that in Rishikesh also the river is not flowing. The river is static. One of the most celebrated places where people go to see the Ganga, the river is not flowing. So this whole idea of river and Ganga, especially because the name itself means that which flows. Uh, and we're celebrating it in all places where the river is not flowing. So I think that stark contrast did come through.
So the river is kind of misunderstood from a common man perspective, from an urban perspective, if I may say. And how is the walking the Ganga different from walking the Ken?
Oh, it's so different. So, first starters, the colors that enter your eyes are so different. The landscape is so different. Uh, the the colors green and brown and blue is what you think about when you think about the Ganga or when you're walking the Ganga. But when you're walking the Ken, it's more ochre yellow and more muddy, and the skies are more a different shade of blue, and the river seems to be green at some times. Uh, it's it's the central Indian landscape that's completely different, and you see the geology that is different, and the kind of places that it moves through. So right from the geological aspects of the river to the colors that enter your eyes, to the fact that population density on the Ganga is far higher as compared to the Ken. So you see villages at larger distances on the Ken as compared to the Ganga. So there's so many things that you naturally understand once you spend time, and then you think about both of those things. Yeah.
There is a film on your this epic walk on the Ganga, which is doing the international film festival circuit. So tell us a bit of the film. How much have you documented and how much you have to cut because of the time constraint? I know you have walked over a year. There are hundreds and hundreds of stories. You had a hard decision to keep some out and keep some in. So tell
Right.
us on this film.
Yeah. Uh, so the film has gone through so many transitions itself. Um, challenges of fundraising, because we weren't able to raise as many funds that we wanted to. It's a crowd-funded project, the whole thing. So we've had to work with limitations. Thankfully, people have come forward and artists have come forward saying, we understand this is a challenge and we want this idea to go out. So from the director, Sridhar, to the animator, Oindri, the sound design by Bhaskar, all of these people have worked, and the another editor that we have, Arbab. All of these people, they've not charged us a lot of money to make this, but because they understood that this message needs to go out, they came together and we all made this film. Um, like you said, the challenge of capturing 6 months of walking into uh, a 1.5 hour, 2 hour film was quite huge. We have about 100 hours of footage, out of which we had to cut out about 2 hours. And that was enormous. It really hurt all of us to leave out some of these important things about the river that people had said, people's stories. Um, but at the same time, we thought, why not use this opportunity to talk about things that are not talked about? The flow in the river, the dams on the river, the diversions, fishing communities, agrarian communities. Because generally, when you think about a documentary on the Ganga, you think about mysticism or you think about pollution. But unfortunately, those are boxes that the river has been, put into. So how do we get out of that box? So we try to uh, base our lens on people's perspective of the river, and yeah, it's been a task for us to be able to do this, but I'm very happy that this is now there and now we can share it with the world.
So when is the Indian audience will get a chance to see this?
uh, I honestly speaking wanted for us to share it with the world the day the production had completed, but this is again a challenge to have a film as part of your larger entourage of storytelling mediums, is that it has its own process that uh, takes its time. And I'm hoping that by the second half of this year, we can share it with the larger audience, even within India and the world. And by ourselves, take the film to schools and colleges, show it to kids, show it to students, young minds, and introduce them to this idea of a river that we don't hear about in the mainstream. So that's what we are hoping to do.
And what about the communities who are in the film? Is there a plans to screen it in at least in some parts of the river, so that
Absolutely.
there is some pride, local pride comes in that हम भी वो फिल्म में है, उस फिल्म में हमारा भी स्टोरी है.
Absolutely.
So
So a
there
couple
are
of
plans. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We have spoken to a couple of communities already where we want to go back, and thankfully, I've managed to stay in touch with a few of the communities that we met while walking the river. So we plan to go back and show the film to them. But at the same time, we realize that we are very clear that they know what we are showing in the film. For us, it's a completion of a connection because of which we want to show it to them. In terms of an education, it's the urban person who needs to watch this film. The riparian community knows what we're showing in the film. So I think when we go there, we're not trying to say we will teach you about the river. We're just saying that we did this journey, which is your story. So we're coming back to show it to you. So that's what at least we're trying to, keep our focus on.
Briefly, I want to just ask you on the Out of the Eden work, which also you participated, the National Geographic work. So tell us something on that, because I know you worked on that circuit as well with Paul.
Yeah. So Paul, just to introduce folks who don't know about it, Paul Salopek is a journalist. He's a prize-winning journalist. He's won the world's best prizes on journalism. But for the past 7, 8 years, he's been walking across the world. He started from Ethiopia, and then he's walking across the world on the path of our ancestors, first ancestors, who walked and discovered the world. Um, and I had the privilege of joining him while he was walking through India. And interestingly, the part of his walk through Pakistan, India, and then Myanmar is divided into a chapter. It's the fifth chapter in his storytelling. It's called Riverlands. So there was a default lens of looking at rivers when crossing through this geography. So when I joined the walk, or before me, Arti Kumar Rao, who was walking with Paul, we already have lenses tuned to the river and tuned to rivers. Uh, Walking with Paul, I ended up crossing so many of my old paths. The Ganga at Allahabad, the Ganga again at Bhagalpur. And all these times before I walked with Paul, I was walking along rivers. This was a time when I was walking across rivers from one basin to another. So we would literally go down to the river and then ride up again to the watershed and then go down onto the next watershed. So it was like a poetic motion of going up and down in waves through different watersheds. And uh, it uh, it makes you think about so much if you think about the geography. Because when I was walking with Paul in Rajasthan, we crossed from the Indus watershed into the Ganga watershed. And then also along the both of us walked from the Ganga watershed into the Brahmaputra watershed together in Bengal. So realizing those things while doing these walks was incredible and makes you feel connected to the landscape even more.
So how much has this also changed your life as an environmentalist kind of thing? These are quite incredible journeys you have done. How, how was the impact on your kind of thinking, your way of life?
Um, it's been, or I should say that it has transformed me way more than what I thought possible. Um, it has made me think way more than I thought I would think, and uh, it has given me the luxury of time and made me understand the value of slowing down, where we are hurried every day to I myself end up watching one YouTube video, another YouTube video, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's just so much information, but eventually we have to choose and filter and process and make sense of this. So these journeys have helped me build filters and made me realize the value of these filters, to slow down, to think meaningfully, and not worry too much about being left behind.
After Ganga, after Ken, what's next, Siddharth? Which river are you walking?
Uh, I just wanted to add that apart from the walks along these rivers, my organization Veditam, we've set up a fellowship program. And in 2019-20, we had 8 fellows go and walk along River Betwa. They've created fabulous documentation, which I'm very proud of, that I had some role to play in that documentation that they had created. And we hope that our fellowship programs keep continuing, where we can identify rivers where people walk, young people, not just me, walk and document with their own lenses, with their own biases. And then we repeat these exercises again. Personally speaking, I'm really looking forward to rivers like the Mahakali, that I'm very interested in walking. It has so many aspects. It's threatened by a dam. It's got transboundary issues. It forms the border of India and Nepal. I also want to walk the Yamuna, because now I've touched upon so many parts of the Yamuna at different places. So I'm really looking forward to walk the Yamuna as well. And more rivers in central India, I think. I'm really intrigued
What
by that.
about the Brahmaputra or
Uh,
the Indus?
those are, I think, dream ideas. But especially for the Brahmaputra, I, from my walking till now, I identify or I have learned that it shouldn't be me who's doing it. I might be the companion, but it should be someone who knows the local language, because they are the primary interface with the local communities to understand languages. And I don't want to have someone translating for me. I'd rather be on the back, walking along with others who take the lead. We can support them in their walk, but through the fellowship program, but others do the walk, and we go along with them, we learn from them. So it's definitely for rivers where I don't know the language, I'd want others who know the language to take the lead. Yeah.
Thank you, Siddharth, and best wishes for your future work. I hope I will kind of join you one day in one of these great adventures. But thank you so
Absolutely.
much for joining us on Planet Earth. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.